You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Thank you for joining us here at Open Agenda. I am your host, Joe White. I'm joined here today with our executive producer, Joe Venosa. So once again, our goal of this show is to inform you about upcoming county meetings, county council meetings, hearings that are going to come up, as well as committee meetings that we think that would impact community life and that you should be aware of. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm living the dream, Joe. How are you?
It's great. Thanks for coming in here today.
Thank you.
So we were both at the last county council meeting on July 2nd, and there was a couple hearings that were very prominent, and I think we should talk about exactly what was, what came up at those meetings. The first one was the approval of the new rules and regulations for the county parks and rec. A lot of those had not been updated in the last 15 years. So they didn't cover things like drones and motorized scooters and motorized bikes and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I was at a lot of the Parks and Rec meetings when their commission was going through what were the new pertinent rules to bring it up to date. Mm-hmm. It was amazing how much work Director Miller and his committee had to do to bring that up. They came back in open work sessions to the county council. And then on July 2nd, there was a public hearing where the public had a chance to weigh in. We saw several people get up and do that. The most hot button topic was the ability for the wear and carry permits on park property in accordance with state and federal law. Right. Mm-hmm. The other hearing that came up was about a grant to expand from a promotional standpoint at the airport to lure another airline into the Salisbury, Wacomico, Ocean City Regional Airport. Mm-hmm. I thought that there wasn't as much debate about this. There wasn't as much knowledge of this because it came up very last minute. What did you think about that?
I concur completely on that. I think a lot of people who spoke at the event and have spoken out since that meeting were very much blindsided, or felt blindsided by the fact that you basically had a very private meeting with business leaders about a week prior to the meeting, and then it was put on the agenda very quickly. And it brings up all sorts of questions because, as many of you at home may remember if you've been in the county a while, we essentially did this already about 12 years ago with a different airline, where it was essentially the same business model. It was have a low-cost carrier with out-of-state flights, and ultimately that airline ended up going bankrupt. So there's a real economic argument that I think you can make either way. Some people see it as sort of an incentive to bring more business. I think a lot of us, however, did respectfully disagree with that on the premise that you're sort of subsidizing among county taxpayers an airline that would take people out of the county.
It would. I mean, it would take them to Florida. And for 2 years, they're going to waive the landing fees at the airport. Those fees go to provide fire service to the airport. Part of the grant is to cover those losses for the first 2 years. Mm-hmm. But I think, you talk about there just not being a lot of information. And the grant's not been awarded yet. So, yes. So the pledge was...
It's a pledge prior to...
For the local funding.
Correct.
And Worcester County's pledged money, City of Salisbury's pledged money, the Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Salisbury Committee have pledged us a very small amount of money.
Yeah.
The hard thing is to know where the benefits lie and where the risk lie. Part of this agreement is there's 2 years that we guarantee profitability for this airport or for this airline. And we don't know what that means.
Yeah, and it brings up a bigger structural argument. I mean, there's also a philosophical one, right? Because what we're having here is essentially, the government picking winners and losers economically. Councilman Joe Holloway called it corporate welfare, and that is something that some people certainly view it as. Others sort of couch it in the language of public-private partnerships. Others view it as sort of incentivizing economic development. I think you could look at that in many different ways, but I do absolutely think that the fact that you had very little public discussion, and then you sort of had a kind of momentum building into the meeting without a sense of, again, from the public as to what really this was about and what it could mean. Because we are looking at, as we've already indicated, we've lost about $2 million from our disparity grant, right? That was part
From
of
the state.
From the state. Our county executive, in her decision to go full force with this hybridized system, is probably guaranteeing us losing nearly $1 million a year on average from our budget, because that money is more than likely going to other sources, because
The hybridized system
The
for
hybridized
the
system
for
for
the
the
dispense
alcohol-
for the
for the
alcohol
dispensary,
dispensary,
right.
Yeah, which is related, and
It
and
is.
and it comes back around.
It is, because these decisions are essentially deciding to defund our budget to some extent. And maybe it's a bit of a radical view on my part, but if you are the county government, wouldn't you want to preserve money that you'll need for your community?
Yeah, Jeff Merritt's going to be on our show later on, and I'm going to ask him some of those questions directly.
Yeah.
But I also encourage you to attend the county council meetings. A lot of the decisions for this have not been made final. Really, this was a pledge for money.
Yep.
So the next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, July 16th at 10 a.m. So come out, make your voice heard at that time. And for the record, Councilwoman Cheney Shields was absent.
Yes.
The vote for awarding this $50,000 pledge, Councilman Holloway voted against it. The other 5 council members did vote for it. Of course, Ms. Cheney Shields was not there. So, so talking about the next county council meeting, July 16th, 10 a.m. One other interesting meeting, and our guest last week was Josh Hastings, and he's the District 4 county councilman. He is on the Natural Resources Advisory Committee on the same date, or actually, I'm sorry, on Tuesday, July, and I apologize, it's actually the 16th. The same date as the county council meetings at 10 a.m. The Natural Resources Advisory Committee is meeting at 2 p.m. in room 306. I looked at their agenda. It's a very generic agenda. Old business, new business, updates from this person. I don't know what the updates are about. I thought Josh was a great guest on our show, and it really spoke about how concerned he is about the economic well-being of the county, but also the environmental, not just the environmental issues, but the conservation of our rural life.
And its connection to the jobs and businesses.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and the heritage here,
Heritage
right?
here, yeah.
I think this is the committee that if this is important to you, you want to keep an eye on. It's definitely something that's getting my attention, and I hope to be able to give everyone an update here next week.
Yeah, and related to that real quick, to sort of show you how these things merge, and this will bring us right back to the airport issue, is one of the discussions that's also happening is the eventual expansion of the runway at the airport, which is going to happen, more than likely be about 2 years. But one of the issues is because there has to be a coordinated effort to essentially relocate an endangered species of salamander.
Yeah, over in that swampy
that
area.
lives in a swampy area. So that's a great example where literally, in real time, you are seeing sort of the economics, environmental impact issues, species preservation, all literally coalesce in the same physical spot.
So our guest today, after we come back, is going to be Vice President of the Council, actually, Jeff Merritt. We're going to discuss with him Operation We Care, which is an organization very near and dear to him, the hybridized liquor dispensary, the referendum that's going to be coming up in November, as well as the airport grant. And we'll find out what else he has to say. Thank you, Joe, for joining me. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. I'm your host, Joe White. I'm joined today with our guest, Councilman Jeff Merritt, who's the Vice President of the Wicomico County Council. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Councilman Merritt, tell me a little bit of why you decided to run for the county council in the first place.
Joe, I just wanted to help people. I've been doing work my whole life in various projects and ventures that basically solve problems and figure out a better way to do things and how we can help people.
So you just were elected by your fellow council members as the Vice President of the council. How's your role changed, if it has at all?
So I think I have a few more meetings to attend,
Okay.
but that's not a bad thing.
You don't just do this 2 days a week, huh?
No.
Okay.
No, not hardly.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
We have council meetings that last well more than 4 hours. So
I've been to a few of those.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Operation We Care. I know that's not part of the county council, but I know that's something that's very near and dear to you.
Yeah, we started that back in 2007. At the time, the Salisbury National Guard unit was deployed to Iraq, and we wanted to send them packages for Christmas. And it wasn't a real big organized effort, just a dozen people, and we packed 60 or 65 boxes and sent them off, and had no forward plan, no money, no plan, and here we are, almost 18 years later.
What's the one request or maybe one piece of feedback, like the item you put in there that shocked you? Like, what's the one thing that you thought, they won't care, but then they did?
Oh, that's easy. Fisher's popcorn.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that would be one of my favorites too.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool because whether you're from this area or not, you might have come to our area and been to Ocean City and the boardwalk and bought Fisher's popcorn, and it just kind of brings back some memories.
I think for those men and women who are over there doing all the hard work that we're also lucky to not have to do, having just that chance to have a little bite from home probably means so much to them.
When you get something that you weren't expecting from somebody who you don't know and will likely never meet, the impact on your morale is pretty significant. Yeah.
So, there's been some very technical new aspects of county life, and one of them has been the new hybridized liquor dispensary system. It just went into effect July 1st, but this is something that's years in the making, and I was hoping you could explain a little bit of just how that process worked, how long has it taken, and what does it mean?
Well, there's been an effort made over the past, I don't know how many numbers of years, to do this. But for whatever reason, it hasn't gone through. Last year, a task force was put together, organized by the Greater Salisbury Committee and the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. And on that task force was representatives of all the stakeholders in the community that this legislation would impact. The nonprofits, the large bar and restaurant owners, the small bar and restaurant owners, the liquor store operators, the private liquor store owners. And we wanted to get a sense of if this were to go forward, what impact would it have both immediately and down the road. So it was 9 months long, and I sat on there representing the council, and Director of Administration Bunky Luffman sat on there representing the executive office. So it was good.
Now, one of the comments that got made at the county executive and Delegate Carly Anderton's press conference that concerned me, and I've heard concerns many citizens, is this appetite to now expand this hybridized system, and even possibly to the effect that we're going to have more liquor stores in the community. You were on the task force. What's the feedback you saw on the task force for that?
That was pretty discussed really early on, and there really wasn't, it seemed, a lot of support for any additional liquor stores in the county.
Okay.
The comment that was made on more than one occasion in the task force and at council meetings from both the public and members of the council was, we don't want a liquor store in every corner like some of these other communities have. So not sure where that's going to go, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of support for it, and I don't think we really need to go in that direction.
I think if you have a viewpoint on how you feel that should go, there are public comment times at the county council meetings. The next meeting is July 16th at 10 a.m. Come make your voice heard, okay? The other subject that's come up is the budget was passed in June. It took a lot. I mean, there was a lot of moving pieces here.
Yeah.
One of the comments I've heard come out of the executive's office, this is the largest budget ever. Can you speak to that? Really, how much did it go up, and what parts of it actually caused it to go up?
It did go up, and it is the largest budget in the history of Wicomico County. But we can say the same thing last year. And I went back 10 years, actually, and I stopped counting after 10 years, but we can say it for each of the last 10 years. And it's not due to any one particular thing other than inflation.
Okay.
Basically, the cost of doing business, whatever the business is, whether it's in private industry or government, it costs more now than it used to.
What role has the benefits, the cost of benefits, like every business is feeling, what role has the cost of benefits for providing, that we should provide for the county employees? What part of the budget has contributed to that part of the increase?
So the health insurance, as you can expect, goes up every year. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%. So that's an increase right there. There's some mandated efforts coming down from the state level, the Family Medical Leave Plan, which has been delayed now twice, but it will be implemented the end of 2025, unless they delay it again. That's going to impact our budget too.
So you're probably going to break another record, right?
It's likely, yes. Yeah.
So we're going to take a break. We want to find out a little bit more about Pemberton Historical Park and Pemberton Hall. When we come back, Councilman Merritt will still be joining us, and we'd like to talk about the referendum and a couple items coming up through the airport, and as well as some other council business on the way. Will you stick around and join us?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be right back.
Nestled along the banks of the Wicomico River, just 3 miles from downtown Salisbury, Pemberton Historical Park provides a window into 18th century plantation life on the eastern shore. In addition to the restored colonial plantation buildings, you can also discover 4.5 miles of walking trails, brackish water marshes, forests, open space, and scenic views of the Wicomico River. Also available are picnic areas with grills, fishing ponds, public restrooms, and a nature center. The 900-acre plantation known as Pemberton Manor was purchased by Isaac Handy and his wife, Anne DeShiel, in 1726, 50 years before the United States became a nation. They thereupon began building the now restored manor house known as Pemberton Hall, which was completed in 1741. With the skills and labor of approximately 20 African slaves, the Handy family grew tobacco for export to England, as well as a variety of food crops for their own consumption and for shipping to markets up and down the eastern seaboard. They also operated a lumber mill, maintained fruit orchards, made cider and brandy, and milled grain. Additionally, the Handys were part owners of several ships which were used to transport the plantation's bounty to faraway markets. Throughout the 1700s, tobacco was the plantation's primary cash crop. The dried tobacco was packed into large barrels known as hogsheads, which were rolled down to Mulberry Landing Wharf at the water's edge over what was known then as the Rolling Road. The hogsheads of tobacco and other plantation products were then loaded onto scows and moved to ships anchored in deeper water for transport to their destinations. The driveway used to enter the park was once part of that rolling road, and at low tide, you may be able to see remnants of the Mulberry Landing Wharf, which was built in 1746 and is the oldest documented bulkhead wharf in the United States. By the 20th century, the manor house, Pemberton Hall, had fallen into disrepair and by the 1960s had become uninhabitable. But in 1963, the decaying buildings were transferred to the Pemberton Hall Foundation along with 262 acres of the plantation's original acreage. After doing meticulous research, the Pemberton Hall Foundation restored the manor house to its original condition, right down to the paint colors and furnishings. Pemberton Historical Park is open all year from dawn till dusk. The manor house is open to the public on the first and third Sundays of each month from May through October between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m. Private tours can also be arranged, and several public events and festivals take place at the park from spring through fall. For more information, visit the Wicomico County Recreation Parks and Tourism website or PembertonHallFoundation.com.
What an amazing park Pemberton Park is. I can tell you that I've been on the nature trails, I've been in the manor house, and if you haven't been there yet or you haven't been to one of the festivals there, you're really missing out. Councilman Merritt, thanks for sticking around and joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks.
So you were one of the council members who voted for the referendum in November to switch us back to a county manager form of government. I'd like to hear a little bit about why you voted for that referendum to pass.
Well, before I was on the council, I did a lot of work in the arena, but not necessarily front-facing, so I was pretty aware of the ongoing issues between the various executives and the councils for whatever reason. And it seemed like it had a common denominator, which was things weren't getting done. Things were taking too long. Things that should have got done didn't get done. Costs were escalating because of legal fees going back and forth. So that was one thing. Cost is another one. Transparency. Things that I've watched over the years. Things could have definitely been more transparent. Public could have been included on a lot more things that they weren't included on. And just, I guess, going back to the efficiency. Things were just, like I said, taking too long to get done, to get to the finish line. And can we build a better mousetrap? After 18 years, I think so. I think we just have to admit that not pointing the finger of blame in any one direction, it's just not working like we want it to.
I think one of the most poignant aspects of this is we've had 4 different types of county executives. We've had a business owner. We've had an insider, like an interim, John Poseida. We've also had a career bureaucrat. I mean, Rick Pilot. I mean, this is what he does. And now we've had someone who's an educator. When you look at some of the problems we're dealing with in 2024, they do not all circle back to our current executive. Many of them, lack of development of certain parks or use of open space money to maybe overutilizing some other areas. They circle back to all the different players over the years. And how do you feel? You talk about transparency. How is the public able to have more transparency with the county council versus any executive, not just the current one?
Well, with the county council, everything's going to have to be done at a meeting that's open to the public, and there's going to be public hearings, work sessions that are open to the public, unless they're closed for whatever reason. Now, the closed sessions are usually closed because there's a legal or a personnel or human resources issue, and that's obvious. But most of the things are done in public view, so you can be part of the process.
Well, one of the other arguments I've heard is that the executive is the most prominent place to get things done. And if we use an example, we talk about the airport grant. Could you explain to us who Tony Rudy is and what's your relationship with him, not personally, but professionally, and how that might change as a county manager or a council manager type of government?
Well, Tony Rudy, he's the director of airport operations, and we have a great working relationship. Our airport is a great place. It's part of the whole economic development jigsaw puzzle here in Wicomico County, so it's very important that we support the airport and its operations to the level that we can. Obviously, if we had a blank checkbook, it would be a different story, but we don't, and I think everybody's feeling that pain right now.
If you didn't have a county executive, would the grant, the grant that just got passed or applied for, I should say, and the county council just voted at the last meeting to pledge $50,000 towards this grant, would that grant still be able to be applied for even without a county executive?
Yeah.
And would Tony Rudy be, or someone in his position,
Yes.
he'd be the person who would
Yes.
lead that charge like he is now?
Yes.
Correct?
Well, and for the grant, just so the public's aware, Worcester County, which is a commissioner form of government, they also donated $50,000. The town of Ocean City donated $25,000. So,
And their mayor is more ceremonial than
correct.
actual, correct?
Yeah.
So we're still working through some of the other processes like landfill tipping fees and the sanitary district that is currently in the process of being set up. Would you speak a little bit about the role of the county council and how are we going to keep this process transparent for the public going forward?
Well, the sanitary district has to be created as part of the water sewer master plan, and that's ongoing right now. Actually, I'm Sounds like we're having a meeting next week about that, what that's going to look like and the people that are going to be on it. Though it's going to be a long, expensive process. But on a high note, we are farther along now in this process than we have been in 60 years.
And you say long. Give me an idea of what do you mean is long?
It's going to have to be done in stages. So we've been told that the first stage could be 5 to 7 years. The entire package for the whole county, you're probably looking at 25 years.
Okay. I've
Yeah.
heard even as long as 60 or 80 years as part of the plan.
Yeah, it's going to depend because it's not all going to be funded by the county. There's going to be state and federal funding mixed in with all this too. And what that's going to look like, we're still in the infancy of that whole process. But we're going to have to start. There's two areas right now that have been identified as immediate need, which is in the Parsonsburg Old Ocean City Road area and out in Hebron Mardella.
And the Parsonsburg area, specifically, you're talking about in the Chesapeake Heights area, Pacific Avenue.
Along
Atlantic
Old
Avenue.
Ocean City Road. And the problem there is the lots there are so small that if the septic system fails, there's no room to put another drain field.
You don't have the distance anymore.
Correct.
For the new regulations.
Right.
I think one of the interesting aspects of what Councilman Merritt's talking about is if we keep the county council making these decisions for us and you want him to know exactly how you feel about your position or how this might impact you, you can find him at every county council meeting. You have your chance to get up and speak during public comments.
Mm-hmm.
But Councilman Merritt, tell us a little bit how can someone reach you via email? How would they reach out to you? I know you respond very well to email.
So all the council members are very responsive. We have county emails. We have phones. They can contact the council office and get to us that way. The county council members are all part of various boards and commissions of different things in the county, and we attend all the meetings. We're very accessible. I'm not the only one that does this on the council. We don't ask what district you live in. If you contact a county council member with a problem, whoever that person is going to work for a solution. You're not going to get the answer, "You're not in my district. I'm sorry, you have to call somebody else." We don't do that.
Absolutely. I've heard that time and time again from every single one on that county council.
Yeah.
Well, in our last segment, we're going to ask Councilman Merritt to spend 3 minutes at the microphone to speak about whatever he's passionate about. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for coming back. Now we have 3 minutes with Councilman Jeff Merritt. You have the floor.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe. I'd just like to say that I think all of us are probably not in the place where we want to be with all of this back and forth. But we are still getting a lot of good work done for the county. The property tax credit for the firefighters, volunteer firefighters, and the ladies auxiliary. We were able to get that through. We're working on the water sewer master plan. Again, that's been in the works for 60 years. And the liquor bill, was tried last year. It didn't. It got to Annapolis. Apparently, it didn't have local support, so it was not supported. It got kicked back, and they made another run at it. This time through a task force, which was good. It was good they did it that way. There are a lot of good things going on in the county. I wish that we could not have so much time with the lawyers. It would allow us to get more things done. I didn't do this for me. I didn't do this for the money. I didn't do this for the recognition. I did this to help people. It's what I've done my whole life. Solve problems of one form or another in a lot of challenging situations. And I like helping people work through problems and come to the solution. Because there's always a solution, but the solution requires a discussion. If you don't have the discussion, you're not going to get the solution. So that's why I've done it.
Well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us with Councilman Jeff Merritt. We'll be back next week with updates from the county council meeting and any committee meetings with minutes. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.